Double, double toil and trouble. It's Shakespeare's birthday on 23rd of April, and to celebrate this amazing man, I'm looking at the ingredients of the Song of the Witches and breaking it down for you. The song is taken from Macbeth, where the three witches are adding pretty gruesome ingredients into a cauldron, right? Well, no, not really. Let's go through the spell line by line, and I'll explain what I'm actually saying here. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Now, rather than being hubble bubble toil and trouble, as most people think it is, the original words are double double toil and trouble, referring to numerology and the change from typical iambic pentameter to mimic speech to rhyming couplets, making it feel really mesmeric and weird. Fillet of a fenny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. I know I've said this before in another video, but a fenny is a bog or a swamp. In Old English, a fenny snake is actually swamp grass, and a fillet of a fenny snake is the white spongy middle bit of a reed. It's the subject of a bit of debate though, because although it sounds sensible with the explanation that I just gave you, and it's the one I prefer, for the sake of completeness I should also point out that some people have said that it may also be another name for a sliced up leech, which is a bit more gross. Eye of newt and toe of frog. Toe of frog is actually a buttercup called the bulbous buttercup. It's the same as most buttercups, except that the stem is rather fatter than normal. Eye of newt is actually mustard seed due to the size and similar look to newt's eyes. Wool of bat and tongue of dog. Wool of bat is simply the woolly covering of a rock often found in and around bogs called moss. Moss on a holly tree in particular, because the holly leaf looks a little bit like a bat wing, and the red berries are thought to look like drops of blood, an association bats have had with blood for many years. And the tongue of the dog is a hound's tongue genus of gypsy flower, Cineglossum officinale. It has a hairy stem and can grow up to 4 feet tall, which is about as tall as an Irish wolfhound. Clumps of purple flowers can be found at the end of a very hairy stalk, and these are called the tongue of the dog, or tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blind worm's sting. Adder's fork is actually known as Ophiglossum lusitanicum, or least adder's tongue. It's a small fern, and it would have been present upon the heath where the witches had gathered. And a blind worm is another name for a slow worm, and the sting was thought to be its discarded tail. Since slow worms and lizards are not actually worms, they can detach the lower part of their body without causing death or major serious injury. Lizard's leg and owlet's wing. Most academics agree that lizard's leg is probably ivy because of how long, thin and tough it is. And as for owlet's wing, it's thought that this is probably some kind of garlic or ginger, probably most likely garlic because of the flaky feathery white and the shape of the garlic looking a little bit like a wing. Both of these are root vegetables and are very smelly and often used in cooking, as well as in magical spell work and protection spells and things like that. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. Yes, I'm not going to sugarcoat that one too much. These witches aren't very nice. But then again, you need to consider the audience that you're making this for. The play was written for King James, and he was pretty big in the Church of England because he was the head of the Church of England. And so he needed to unite the Protestants and the Catholics under one banner. So you can just imagine that denigrating the pagans, and particularly witches, was something of a priority at this time in history. And so that's what Shakespeare did to please his audience. I kind of understand that. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Again with a numerology reference. Lit with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. And finally we have baboon's blood. Now this one is a little bit tricky, and it would be very strange if this were the only literal ingredient in the whole recipe. It might just be that this is a blood of a gecko, which is able to regenerate, and therefore it could be the magical source of the witch's power too. But it's more likely, I think, that this is some kind of sap of some kind of tree instead. The dragon's blood, for example, of a lot of magical recipes actually comes from the red sap of a tree, and so maybe this baboon's blood is something similar. Baboon has the same number of syllables as dragon, so it's not likely to be the exact same tree, but it's probably now lost to the sands of time, and sadly we may never know for sure. If you'd like to make real potions that you can drink that actually taste good and don't include limbs of lizards, check out my book and cocktail cards where the drinks that you make look and feel like real magic. They burn, glow, change colour, spark, fizz, bubble and smoke. I put the links down in the description. And there you have it, slightly more educational than normal, but I hope that you found it interesting and entertaining. And if you did, please click that like button, subscribe and ding that bell, and a massive shout out to my members and patrons. You guys are amazing. If you'd like to support me too, head on down to the links in the description and check out realwizardrystore.com. Hang out with me on these social medias and I'll be back next time with some more magical awesomeness. But until next time, as always,
Stay magical.